and welcome to In the Line of Fire. I'm Reed Yaden. This program highlights the work of the Jefferson County Fire Districts. Now, this time, we're at the Okolona Fire District for this program. You'll learn more about this department. That's coming up. Plus, Louisville's new mayor offers his views on fire protection. And we'll meet a volunteer who juggles a full-time career as an attorney and a lieutenant's position on the Harrods Creek Department. First on this program, an economic crisis for fire districts. This department, Okolona, is one of the largest suburban fire districts. It covers 33 square miles. Now, the district is a mix of residential and industrial, with large businesses like UPS, Jefferson Mall, and GE. Well, until recently, this department operated 4 stations, but funding concerns prompted the district to close one of its smaller stations. On the east side of the county, 2 fire districts have closed one of their stations for a day at a time. At Lyndon, there just isn't enough money to pay firefighters the overtime to always staff the second station. Right now, listen as the fire chiefs at Lyndon and Okolona talk candidly about the current dollar issues and their desire to improve the financial situation for fire districts. 2 fire chiefs talk candidly about their concerns for the financial health of their departments.
This day and time is kind of tough on fire districts, and trying to balance budgets and do all the things that you would like to do are very challenging things to do. And you know, we're trying to run an outstanding fire department on an income that doesn't make it easy to do that.
We just don't have the money to pay overtime to maintain minimum staffing.
Over the past few months, Okolona has closed one of its fire stations, and the Lyndon district has had brownouts at one of its 2 stations, meaning the station was basically closed for 24 hours. For Okolona, closing its Station 4 came at a time when the district couldn't justify the operating cost when firefighters only staffed the station part-time. Okolona will move engines to respond to that part of its district. But Chief Carlson says the board's decision simply emphasizes a serious case of growing pains.
Okolona is moving towards being a mostly career fire department. And with Okolona being a career fire department and the tax structure being what it is, we had to look at ways of limiting our costs in other areas when we can. And one of the very difficult decisions the board made was to closing the Station 4, which was the old Edgewood Fire District.
That move toward career firefighters is great for the citizens, better coverage and more services. But here's the problem. Fire districts are primarily funded through a tax base that's over 60 years old.
The tax rate structure that we currently have is pretty much centered around most fire departments being volunteer departments. Okolona has kind of migrated towards a mostly career fire department, and there are a lot of expenses that go with that.
Our personnel costs have risen to where they're almost 90% of our revenue. And that's being driven by the increase in pension costs that the state mandates, and also increases in health insurance coverage.
At the Lyndon district, Chief Rakestraw said the board had to cut overtime 50% last year to balance the budget. That means that Station number 2 has closed periodically for 24 hours. The district sent a letter to residents explaining what was happening and the possible impact.
We'll see longer response times. That means either the company from Station 1 is making the call, or possibly a Worthington company making the call. And if this station's out of service on another call, or Worthington Station 2 is out of service on another call, then the response times will be even longer. There are 2 options for increasing our revenue. One is to initiate ambulance service, which would provide us revenue from the transports, as well as it gives us an opportunity to increase our tax rate under the law. That is our preferred option. The other option is a change in the law that we operate under, KRS Chapter 75, to increase that tax cap.
Both chiefs want the public to understand that the fire district has evolved into really a business, not a volunteer organization, and that fire protection is ultimately a community issue.
Our volunteer numbers are diminishing. We've probably got 2 career firefighters to every 1 volunteer, and it seems to be headed that way. I don't know if it'll be extinct in my lifetime, but I think probably, in the next generation or 2, volunteer firefighters will be a thing of the past.
Realistically, this is a community's problem. It obviously impacts us. We have a cadre of very dedicated people that are very committed to serving the community, and when we're unable to do so at a level we're comfortable with due to factors that are out of our control, it causes a lot of stress with people because we want to do a good job. But we recognize that this is really not the fire department's problem, this is the community's problem. And until the community comes together as a group and says we want our fire stations, not just Lyndon, there are other departments that are having similar problems, we want our fire stations adequately staffed. We want response times to our emergencies to be within reasonable limits. Until the community gets together and says that, there's realistically not going to be a whole lot of meaningful change.
Both Chief Carlson and Chief Rakestraw talked about that tax cap. Now here's how it works. Fire districts receive a tax on assessed property. The limit is 10 cents for every $100 of assessed value. And there's a limit that was created by the legislature in 1944. Now because of the funding concerns, fire districts more than ever are working together for a quick response. Currently, the average response time is 4 minutes and 52 seconds. McMahon Fire Chief Joe Johnson joins me now to talk about how dispatchers utilize a method called closest station response when selecting which fire department to respond to. Chief Johnson, tell me how this works exactly.
Well, Reed, how it works is we have a CAD system, a computer-aided dispatching system, and each fire district worked with the people that programmed the CAD to tell them what type of equipment to go to what type of runs. We use a GIS mapping system that maps each fire station in Metro Louisville, and from each single address in whatever district, it maps out 16 stations deep. So it knows to look at 16 different fire stations from the closest to the furthest. And that's how it tells them what equipment to pull. Based on a type of incident, event as we call it, determines what type of equipment. Such a structure fire would get 3 engines, which are pumper trucks, and 2 truck companies, which are ladder trucks.
How are the districts working together to make this quick response work?
Well, we've all signed on to the unit dispatch, and we utilize that mapping, that GIS mapping that tells us the closest companies. So if we're asking for 3 pumper trucks and 3 ladder trucks, it looks at all the stations down through there and picks the type of apparatus that we need.
Okay.
And if it's not available in, say, McMahon Station, then it looks at Jeffersontown.
Okay.
And then whatever it's not available at Jeffersontown, it may look at Lyndon or St. Matthews and down the line, however the closest station, next closest station is.
So this assures that you get exactly the equipment you need as quickly as possible.
As quickly as possible, because you're sending the closest unit based on the address location.
How has this cooperation helped in your district?
Well, in my district, I'm a very small district. I have minimal volunteers at this point. So in most cases, I'm guaranteed, especially during the daytime, I'm guaranteed 1 apparatus. And that's my staffed apparatus, my career staffs. My volunteers, most of them work during the day, so I rely heavily on my neighbors from mutual aid. And so automatically, I get the equipment I need to do the job that has to be done.
Now, the chiefs at Lyndon and Okolona talked about the financial struggles. What's the situation in your district?
Well, Reed, I think that any district in today's economy is going to have financial issues. You know, the tax cap was set in 1944 for rural departments. We are not rural by any stretch of the imagination in most cases. There are rural areas in some districts, but predominantly we're in urban settings, and we're not an all-volunteer department anymore.
And your hands are tied, though, by a law that was written in 1944.
Our hands are tied. You know, for a small district like myself, I'm able to cut. I don't have the personnel costs that some of the larger districts like Okolona and Lyndon have with multiple stations, bigger districts and that. So my personnel costs are minimal, and I'm able to shave the budget in areas that cut things like public education things or public relation type things like that in order to make a balanced budget. But you know, at some point you run out of being able to cut things,
right,
and then you start affecting the operations, which then affects the safety of our taxpayers.
Chief, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
While fire departments do a great job of quickly responding, often their efforts are in vain. Statistics show that false alarms account for 25% of all fire runs throughout Louisville and Jefferson County. Now the suburban and the city fire departments have joined together for a public education campaign aimed at promoting proper maintenance of an alarm system. Fern Creek Fire Chief Mike Schmidt joins me to talk about that campaign. First of all, Chief, just an explanation of how do you define a false run or a false alarm?
We define a false alarm as any time the alarm system is activated and there were no smoke or flames. A low battery, a dirty detector, improper access code, and construction dust are typical examples of a false alarm.
Now, recently, you, along with Mayor Jerry Abramson and Louisville Fire Chief Greg Frederick, held a news conference to talk about this education campaign. What's the message for people with an alarm system?
Well, the goal of our campaign is to educate people about false alarms and what causes them. We want them to know how to properly use their fire alarm system, how to keep it maintained, and better yet, to update it if possible.
With 25% of the runs being false, there has to be a big impact of those runs. What is it?
Well, the impact to the taxpayers is about $3 million a year. Those false alarms take critical resources that we have and tie them up and prevent them from responding to real emergencies, and it causes a delayed response to those emergencies. Additionally, 29 firefighters have been killed nationwide over the last 10 years while responding to false alarms.
29 in 10 years.
Right.
That's a bad statistic. Is there a penalty for a false alarm?
Currently, there's no fine or penalty in place. We're trying an educational approach to our problem first.
Yes.
However, in the future, there could be a fine structure put in place that is similar to the burglar alarm fine that the Louisville Metro Police Department uses.
Some unbelievable stats, Chief. We got to do better.
Well, we're hoping that this campaign will educate people and we'll get it under control.
Very good. Still to come on In the Line of Fire, Fire Prevention 101. Now that it's colder outside, stick around for some good advice on keeping your house safe and warm.
There's been a serious accident in Greenwich Village. 2 city fire trucks have collided. 12 firefighters have been injured, 5 are reported to be in serious condition and are hospitalized. Both trucks responded to a call that proved to be a false alarm. But looking at the injuries and all the damages, one firefighter told this reporter there's really no such thing as a false alarm. Your local fire department protects you. Take it seriously.
You're watching In the Line of Fire. I'm Reed Yaden. Louisville Metro has a new mayor with the coming of the new year. Greg Fischer taking over from longtime Mayor Jerry Abramson. Recently, this program's producer, Josh Grimes, talked with Mayor Fischer about his ideas and concerns when it comes to fire protection. Mayor Fischer first addressed the financial constraints most suburban districts are facing.
And Mayor Greg Fischer joins us now. Mayor, congratulations on your newly appointed position.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
First of all, I just want to start off, you understand the financial difficulties that the Jefferson County Fire Service is experiencing. As the incoming mayor, what can Metro government do to support the fire districts?
Well, the main thing we need to make sure we keep going on is the great cooperative relationship between Louisville Fire and the Suburban Fire as well. There's nothing more important to me as mayor than the safety of our citizens, so that's got to be the #1 issue. We are facing tough times right now economically, and we're seeing that with some of the suburban fire districts that with station shutdowns, some brownouts, some things that could potentially be a problem for our citizens. So and unfortunately that's not the only area of economic challenges that we're having in our city right now. So one of the things I think that's important that we should do is launch an initiative that I call Merger 2.0. We're young as a merged city and county government now, just 7.5 years, 8 years when I take office. So any healthy organization, what they do is say, what's worked, what's not worked, what do we need to change? So I'm going to pull together the right people to take a look at that, including obviously the representatives of the suburban fire area and the city, and take a look at this along with EMS and some of the other challenges that we have for our city, for our county, and say what changes need to be made here so that we can make sure that everybody's safe.
Half of the fire departments runs our medical access in which no reimbursement is received. Lyndon, St. Matthews, and some of the other Easton fire departments are exploring the option and seeking Louisville Metro EMS's support in staffing an ambulance at their respective fire department. Do you have any thoughts on this idea?
Well, EMS runs are increasing, and fire seems to be decreasing a little bit as newer buildings obviously are safer than the older buildings are up there, and as we have an aging population, there's more and more EMS runs. So that dynamic is one of the issues that we'll need to take a look at with this Merger 2.0 as well. So I'd be hesitant to make a whole lot of changes to our current system until we as a community say what's the ideal system look like and make those changes system-wide.
And also right now there are efforts underway to revise Chapter 75 in order to remove the tax cap that was set in 1944. What is your thoughts, and is this something that your office could support the fire service with?
I mean, the overall issue here is that we've got costs that are increasing, whether they're pension costs, health insurance costs, and in the suburban area in particular, we have about 500 paid firefighters, about 500 volunteers as well. So we have an unsustainable situation from a cost basis, and the property tax issue is one of the ways to address that. Again, though, that kind of fits back into me with the Merger 2.0. Is this the direction that we want to go as a community? We need to step back and do some actuarial work to see where the growth is taking place in our county. And even if there was an increase, is that going to be enough to really satisfy what our needs are long term? So I'm going to avoid any type of piecemeal changes until we can quickly take a look at what our system-wide needs are.
Finally, do you have any thoughts about merging the urban and suburban fire districts together?
Well, I applaud the suburban fire districts. I know they're entering into a long-term planning discussion right now, so we can take a look at the public safety for the entire community. So the important thing is that we pull together all the affected parties, the leaders in these parties, all of our community, and we step back and say, what is the ideal system for protecting our citizens? That's the #1 issue. It's not Louisville Fire, it's not suburban fire, it's what can we do best for the entire city, the entire county. So where those discussions will take will be a result of the Merger 2.0 process that obviously I'm holding out great hopes for, but it'll be a community dialogue about a lot of things, but the thing that's most important is the safety of our citizens, and I feel good that this process will lead us in the right direction.
Wonderful. Do you have anything else that you want to add?
Well, I just appreciate the great job that the firefighters do here in our city, both volunteer and paid, Louisville Fire as well. These are heroes for our city that put their lives on the line every day. And just speaking for all the citizens of Louisville, I want to say thank you.
Mayor Fischer, thank you for your time.
My pleasure.
We'll look forward to hearing more of Mayor Fischer's ideas in the coming months. Now, fire prevention is a year-round effort for firefighters, but it's especially important in the colder months. In 2010, Jefferson County fire districts have responded to over 650 structure fires. Nationwide, most house fires begin in the kitchen. And here's a very interesting statistic. Every year, candles account for over 14,000 fires. Well, Sergeant James Hundley from the Worthington Fire District joins me now to talk about fire prevention. It's easier to prevent a fire than it is to put it out. Sergeant, let's talk about candles. Over 14,000 a year causing fires. What kind of mistakes are people making with candles?
Very common mistakes that we are seeing is where people are simply leaving candles burning in rooms that they're not in. So leaving candles unattended. We see people who have candles too close to fabric, like a sofa, chair, draperies, things of that type. And then unfortunately, one of the things that we also see is people leaving candles in rooms with children unattended. A child might knock the candle off onto the floor, catches the rug on fire, or something of that type.
Yeah,
so
and these are all fires that are easily preventable.
Easily preventable. It's just a matter of kind of thinking about something before you leave the room.
Wow. Now that it's colder, many people, of course, try alternative heat sources. They want to save money. What do we need to know? What areas do we really need to be careful about?
One of the items that we try to focus on as far as our education on that point, never use cooking appliances, hot plates, stoves, the oven to try and heat your home in the absence of a working furnace. Space heaters have become very common use in homes. There are many safe ones out on the market, but even though they come across as a safe space heater, make sure that you keep at least 3 feet, 36 inches from anything that's flammable, such as your wall, your sofa, again, your chairs, drapery, things of that type. Keep an eye on the cords that run those heaters. Make sure that they're not frayed, damaged, and one of the big things is also make sure that you don't use extension cords with those heaters.
Sergeant, what about some tips for adults with children in the home, especially where we're using different heating devices?
The biggest thing is education as far as those children go, making sure that they know that they're present, for one, to keep burns from taking place with the children, and let them know, be careful when you're around them, don't trip over them, stuff of that type, knock them over, causing fires.
I'd be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about smoke detectors and a home escape plan. Give us that important information. I know we give it a lot, but I don't think we can give it too much.
I agree with you 100%. We advertise to the public, change your smoke detector batteries at least twice a year. Easiest way to remember when to change those is when you change your clock, change your battery. So the spring and the fall are the 2 times to do that. One of the other items that we always want to educate people on is their home escape plan. Make sure that the children are aware of the plan, that they've practiced the plan. They know of 2 ways out of every room in the home, whether it's an upstairs bedroom or a downstairs family room or a basement. And one of the biggest things is have that family meeting place, a safe distance away from the home where everyone in that family meets to assure that everybody's out of that structure.
So figure out ways out of the house, and then we all know where we're going to go, so that when we get out, we all go to the same place.
And practice it. That's the biggest thing. Make sure you practice it monthly.
Very good. Sergeant, some real good advice.
Thank you.
Next on In the Line of Fire, meet a longtime volunteer at the Harrods Creek Department.
Hi, I'm Mayor Jerry Abramson.
And I'm Kirby Adams.
With so many new cyclists on our city streets, everyone needs to share the road.
I've been hit twice by drivers while riding my bicycle. Treat a cyclist like any other vehicle on the road.
When you drive behind a bicycle, slow down. Wait until it's safe to pass on the left. Just like you would a car, make sure to leave 3 feet between your car and the cyclist.
And cyclists, you should move over if it's safe to let cars pass.
Together, we can keep our streets and roads safe.
For all of us.
Louisville Metro Parks and Recreation. There's no limit to what you can do. Visit your local community center to find programs for you and your family. Check out Metro Parks and Recreation at louisvilleky.gov to find the community center that best suits your needs. Louisville Metro Parks and Recreation. Your city, your parks.
This is In the Line of Fire. I'm Reed Yaden. This program focuses on the Jefferson County fire districts. Nearly all of them include both career and volunteer firefighters. With the demands for 24-hour services, the need for an all-volunteer department has vanished here. But volunteers still play an important role at many districts, like Harrods Creek. For over 10 years, Fred Simon has juggled his career as an attorney and his volunteer efforts at the Harrods Creek Fire District. He's a lieutenant with the department who volunteers at night and on weekends.
It was in the summer of 1999 that I happened to be driving home River Road and saw a sign that says volunteers wanted, and as it happened, it struck me that it would be an interesting thing to check out.
Being an attorney, Simon is often the brunt of some good humor from his peers. But he's found that being a firefighter is actually similar to his day job.
The ability to participate in the fire service is much like the legal business. What you encounter is people having virtually bad days. And so in the law business, I'm helping people with the bad days as it pertains to the law practice and their daily affairs. And with the fire service, I'm helping people when they have really bad days, either with experiences with catastrophes or fires, those type of things.
Simon has seen lots of volunteers come and go at the department, and he understands why. This volunteer position is much more demanding than most.
Today, the firehouse is not the central social location that people gravitate to. They have other things that go on in their lives, and it doesn't seem to be the central point for a lot of these social activities. And so, consequently, it's more of a demand on your time than it used to be in the past.
For Simon, his years at Harrods Creek have provided him continual learning and the opportunity to be a part of a team, something he's not willing to give up anytime soon.
It is truly the ability to continue to offer your services all day long.
There are nearly 1,000 firefighters in the Jefferson County Fire Service, and the number of career and volunteer firefighters is almost equal. Now, if you're interested in becoming a part of the fire service, contact the Jefferson County Fire Service at jeffcofire.com or call 572-3455. Now, you've heard a lot of discussion in this program about the need for more funding opportunities for fire districts. Now, if that is something you support, then contact your legislator or voice your concerns to local government. Thanks for watching In the Line of Fire, and for all of us that worked to put this program together, I'm Reed Yaden.